Hello everyone and welcome back to Riverview. In the most recent episode we transformed the neighborhood of Northside, which is just to the north of some of the more inner city areas of Riverview. We turned it from a single family detached housing sleepy suburb into a hip and trendy row house neighborhood. Lots of cafes and shops and all kinds of good stuff. I'm pretty confident that if you live here, you're a part of the cool crew of Riverview, or at least you are convinced you are a part of the cool crew of Riverview. For today, we're gonna do a few different things, but we're gonna start out with implementing some public transport here in Northside. You guys were quick to point out that it doesn't really have all that much service running. We've got the, let's see, what is this? This is the RTA3 line, this massive line that runs all the way up to Northport from downtown. But it's only going through Northside alongside Aspen Street, so we don't really have any coverage of Briarwood Street. And speaking of this odd name, I did ask for some suggestions, and I think this one pretty much hit the spot. So we're gonna go with not Bohemia Street, but just Bohemia Street. So just a small change there, but that sounds super hip. Now, right before we implement some heavy tram infrastructure here, here's a totally not pushy reminder to like this video if you enjoy my content. Thank you. So let's just assess the current tram situation before we mess anything up. We've got the red line here of the Riverview Transit Authority, and it's a very short line. It basically offers direct connection to the downtown area of Riverview from the Yard, which is this very dense, also quite hipster-rich area redevelopment we built a couple of episodes ago. So I think the obvious approach here would just be to expand the red line to cover Northside as well, at least alongside Bohemia Street here. And we are probably going to end up cutting through Oldport as well and adding a stop here, which is also very nice because while Oldport is in decline, at least the industrial part of it, it still offers more than 4,000 jobs, so it's a pretty important job hub, very close to downtown. Now, one issue I see is that the existing infrastructure in Oldport is kind of old. The rail lines here are, maybe 150 years old. Some of them aren't in use anymore, but some are, so we can't just carve everything up. But the road infrastructure is also a little odd here, as Lindbergh Street basically just ends in a dead end here. It doesn't connect up to Aspen Street. So we've got this small alley connection over here from Pacific Lane, and that's really not fitting for trams. So what I'm thinking is that we're actually going to have a segment of the tram line cutting through Oldport that is completely separate from the vehicle traffic. Maybe just by expanding the tram line alongside Lindbergh Street, and then as we reach this crossing here with Spring Lane, we're actually just going to cut through with a dedicated tram segment. We'll cross these two rail lines here, and then we'll connect up maybe to Highland Street. But we are gonna of course have to demolish some stuff here. I think we can safely demolish this parking lot without much issue. And yeah, I'm not much for just demolishing a lot of development just to build this, but I think given the decline of Oldport and more lots becoming vacant. So let's see, I think first I'm just gonna make like a concept build just so we can check how this actually looks and functions. So I will be dezoning this stuff here, make sure we don't have any developments in the way. And ooh, look at this guy, it's a pretty nice location, but I'm gonna have to eminent domain you, man. No compensation will be offered. We will grab our continuous tool here. Actually, probably complex curve instead, so that we can have a few different points created. And let's just cut through here. Something like, okay, that's not gonna, we'll start with this, I think. Just get that through, and then we'll just do a regular symbol curve so that we can align it with the street here we're trying to connect to. And it's gonna insist on creating bridges, and that's of course because we can't actually make a tram rail line crossing. which I should know by now, but I have completely forgotten. I'm just gonna try and create this with Anarchy and blah. Yeah, I'm gonna have to think of something else. Okay, so since the space is just too tight to elevate or build the tram line underground, and I really don't wanna do any manipulation to the old railway tracks here, since they were here first, I guess one solution would be that we actually just connect up the street here to the Oldport area. It's gonna allow for a bit of an easier connection for people commuting to Oldport from this part of town as well, but obviously the most important aspect is that it's going to allow us to actually get our tram lines in place. So yeah, I kind of hope this wouldn't be necessary, but doing something like this is probably gonna be exactly what we want, and then we can upgrade this stretch here and bring it into Northside. And actually it's probably gonna look a little more natural if I just make a direct connection to this lane instead. So we'll go for a complex curve at our first point here, our second point here, and just connect that up. And then I am going to upgrade this lane here. It's gonna require a bit of demolishing, and then I will connect up the tram line here. Let's see. Enable some snapping. So I guess that's just about going to work. With a little move it magic, I assume. So we're just gonna change that. There we go. And then of course we'll need to upgrade this section here, and that looks pretty fine. Let's just assess how we are entering Woodland Street. Pretty nice subtle curve here, and the new connection is instantly seeing some use, which I guess is a pretty good sign. Integrates Oldport a little better with Northside. Let's continue the tram line upgrading here, move alongside this street, and then we are moving on to Bohemia Street. And I'm gonna have to do some move it configuration of this in just a second, and probably change these avenues as well. I don't want the tram line to run in dedicated tracks in the center here. At least I don't think so. Maybe I do for everything that isn't an actual stop. We could try something like that. I'm just worried about the traffic flow of cars here. I think it's probably safer to just upgrade to this 4-lane road so that the trams actually share a bit of space with the cars. I think we're gonna start with that, and then we can always reassess. But there is actually a lot of traffic here. If you guys remember in the previous episode, Cypress Highway here, or whatever this national road is called, that ran through here was actually, it's a pretty significant arterial, and I guess you can kind of see that by the actual traffic flow. So I think we can't go with dedicated tram tracks, unfortunately. We are gonna have to share with cars, but this is America, so it would be pretty crazy not to have to share with cars, right? I'm gonna get rid of all the trees here and just do a bit of cleanup. And we've got the basic road layout in place. Let's do a little more adjustment. So there's a node here that I'm going to stretch just to make it a little more curvy for the trams, so that the cars act all right. You can see here that this node is quite stretched, and it makes for much more smooth transition. And then we've got a crossing here, which is probably unnecessary, since we've got a crossing with an actual street here, and this is just a Butler Lane connecting through Bohemia Street. So let's move in and get that changed. So we're gonna disallow moving straight from either of the lanes, and we're gonna disallow left turns as well, and disallow left turns here as well. Then we'll remove the traffic lights, and we will remove these crossings here. So that's going to make sure that we've got smooth traffic here and that you can't actually go directly through. So it's not even a crossing anymore, and it already seems to be improving the traffic flow. And I actually think we're gonna do the same here with Underhill Lane and Worswood Street, and then I'll just have to monitor whether much of the traffic that would go through here is going to move to Willow Street, the crossing here, or the crossing here, because I don't really want too much traffic on these small suburban lanes here. But we'll see. I'm gonna try it out at least. I think I just in general have to be more careful with the amount of crossings I'm implementing throughout the city, as it is of course putting extra strain on the current traffic situation. So let's try this out as well. And speaking of monitoring, we're probably gonna have to monitor the crossing here between Woodland Street and Bohemia Street as well, as we've got quite a bit of a queue. And yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what these changes result in. But I am going to just manipulate the node here so that we've got a much smoother turning curve here for our trams, so that they don't act up and look weird as they make this turn. I'm gonna bring back Woodland Street just a bit here as well. Just overall make this a much smoother transition. There you go. Oh, and a little additional road fix. You guys were quick to point out that there's a bit of an issue with the crossing here. For some reason, right turns aren't really allowed, and I'm actually not sure why. I don't remember actually disabling this. So I'm just gonna enable that, and hopefully that's gonna solve that issue. Weird. And we can even do road detailing now in Cities Skylines 2. So I am going to try that just quickly, just to get a feel for it. Let's go and grab some net lanes here, and just going to pause. Let's see. So we'll use this yellow one to designate areas where you don't want to find yourself parked. And I'm not following any, I guess, known rules for intersection markings here. I'm just trying this out, basically, because it's a pretty new thing with the addition of some recent mods. And can you guys remember just how much time we spent doing this in Cities Skylines 2? Cities Skylines 1, sorry. Absolutely crazy. And I'm not really missing it, I will say. I'm pretty happy that there's quite a few lines that are auto-generated now in Cities Skylines 2. It's definitely making it more easy. Let's jump into decals, go for some road markings, see if I can find like a small yellow line. There's this one, I guess. And really just make something very simple here, which we might delete soon if we re-ramp the roads. So yeah, just want to try this out. Yoink. Et voila! Very simple stuff indeed. Maybe, let's see, can we... Net lanes, road markings. I need like a small thin line of some sort. This one maybe? What about this European one? This one here. That's a pretty good one. So what I'm just gonna go for a fixed line, I think. This one. And then just try and kind of mark where you wait for your turn. That one got a little wonky. It's alright. It doesn't make all that sense, but I guess it was just to highlight some of the new opportunities we've got. Anyways, enough with the road detours. We've got a tram line down here that needs an actual endpoint. So we'll just create a sort of a temporary solution down here. We might expand this line in the future, but for now, we basically just need it to be able to terminate. So I'll just add a little segment here, and then we'll connect it up, and we'll add, why does it want to be elevated again? Just add this segment here. I'll just add an additional node because it's too long. Something like this. And we'll start adding some stops. So if I add a stop here, then it's not going to complain anymore, and it can reverse effectively. Or actually there isn't enough space here, so I'm just going to drag out this node here and move the stop back here. We need the entire tram to be able to fit on this single track, because otherwise it can't reverse onto the right track here. That obviously enables it to go in the opposite direction. And then we need some more stops alongside Bohemia Street. So let's just zoom out and see where we want to map out these stops. So I'm just gonna check existing stops. We got some odd stops, because of course it doesn't go like straight through the yard. It kind of has the setup here, and I kind of want to keep this just because it's more interesting. I don't know if it makes more sense, but it is more interesting, I feel. We might move this stop to down here somewhere and have, or maybe actually on this spot here, which is just dedicated tram tracks. That's probably gonna be a good place to get a stop going, make a little custom station serving Oldport. And then we'll need a stop. I guess we'll need a stop here actually, alongside the street here. I don't remember the name. Was it Woodland something? Something like that. So we'll add a stop there, and then we obviously need a stop down here by the end, but I guess that kind of means we only need a single stop alongside the avenue. Probably here would be a good spot. I'm just gonna check if I can reliably create another node. So if I just create a node and maybe do a bit of manipulation with move it in hopes of that making the node stay for a bit. So I'll just do something like this, and then I'll move in and I'll add the stop here at the very center on either side. And then let's see, yeah, that worked. The reason I'm trying to add in some additional nodes here is that if you check here, for instance, if I were to add a stop, then the stop isn't all that big, but the entire stretch of parking here, roadside parking, is going to be allocated to the stop or replaced by pavement rather. And I don't really want that. I want this configuration here where the stop is a little more restricted to the actual space the tram cars need, and then we've got a transition to roadside parking again. But I think this is going to be sufficient for us, and we are probably just gonna delete this stop then, which I think is fine. Maybe move it. I'm gonna remove it for now, yank, and then we'll see just how things pan out. So we'll grab this one here and start dragging out our new tram line, or the expansion to this line rather. Adding the stop here alongside Bohemia, and let's see if we can just get this end stop down here. We can. Sweet. Connect this up, connect the stop up down here, and of course this one. And that does actually look pretty good. So it's gonna be interesting to see how the trams behave, but we're gonna let the simulation run for a bit so that we can get the actual tram cars out on the new parts of the route. Let's get some detailing going with this little custom station here we are building. I think I'm just gonna start expanding the existing pavement path here, and maybe just bring that through to this crossing over here. And I don't really mind backing up some of the industry here and just bringing this in. It's gonna rebuild anyways. And we've got some weird elevation here. I'm just gonna fix. That didn't fix a thing. We can try over. There's actually quite a bit of an elevation change here, so perhaps we should just opt for some custom paths instead. So I'm just gonna clean this thing up and dive into some detailing. And I'm gonna create my custom pedestrian paths first, because I can use the surface tool to very easily create surfaces by snapping to the actual paths. So we'll create a bit of a layout here that has some interesting things going on. Because now that we've got the paths in place, if we jump into our surfaces and grab maybe a tile set that we would like to use, maybe we could use these herringbone tiles here. Then I can enable markers here, and as you guys can see, we can actually snap directly to the invisible paths and really create exactly what we want. The first one, let's take a look. It looks pretty nice. You can of course do this without the snapping, but it's just gonna be more tedious. Let's just check in to see if everything works as expected. Seems to be working just fine. I think I'll just be dezoning here so that we can just add an additional pathway. And then to detail the actual stuff, we should be able to use the picker tool to kind of replicate the aesthetics we have on the main transit hub here by just grabbing the same props so that there's a bit of a uniform look, because this also looks like a pretty new station out here, I'd say. And I could make it with line tool, but I think I'm just gonna manually adjust these and create a couple of different variations. So we'll have a 2x3 over here, maybe just a 2x2 actually, and then over here I might just use the line tool to get the alignment right. I say that, but that's not easy for me apparently. There you go. And then we've also got a very specific bench set we've been using in here at the transit hub, so I'll go back and steal that as well. Yoink. Whoa. Let's move out here and get the benches in place. Not that they're using them, unfortunately, but still looks nice. And it would look like I might need to just bring these two back ever so slightly. If I can grab it though. Is that? Yeah, sweet. There we go. So if anyone is aware of a technique I can use to force people to use my pedestrian paths, then please let me know, because I really can't figure it out. So we'll see a few people walk alongside the tram tracks here, but oh well, it's a small thing. But I think with that though, I am going to add in some additional nodes and just upgrade with the key features, just to add like a small wall, add in a bit of extra detail to the area, add in a node here as well, and do the very same. Something like this. And then for the actual detailing, I've got a bit of a wacky idea to use a bunch of fences and create a really bushy area surrounding the station. So we're gonna jump into net lanes and fence net lanes and grab, let's see, probably grab this one here. And then I'm just going to fence in parts of this area here. We're gonna use the continuous curve. Disable snapping. And it's so good to see that there's already a lot of activity here near the station. Makes me so happy. And let's see. And then we'll be adding some bushes, and we're gonna try something a little different here. So let's grab a tree. Maybe the apple tree, because it has what looks to be flowers. It's apples if we zoom in, but looks to be pretty red flowers. And we can use the new feature here to lower it into the ground, effectively turning it into a bush, which I think is a pretty cool thing. So if we go for, let's see, we'll just go for 4 meters, I guess, and then we start placing. Then we've effectively turned the tree into a large bush instead, and just making things look a little more unique. So I'm just gonna add these throughout. And then I think we're gonna jump into some surfaces, and we're gonna grab some of Sully's wonderful riverbed surfaces just to add a bit of additional texture to the area here. So I'm just gonna do like random patterns throughout, just to kind of break up the map theme texture, the grass theme we're using. Just adding this in instead. Something like this, and then maybe just adding in some actual trees. We'll use a tree we don't use all that much, I guess. So we'll get some London planes and maybe some lindens, and just trying to use this kind of strategically to cover up some of the rough edges. Real classic in Cities Skylines. And I think for me it's just an attempt to use some different flora than usually. I quickly end up just resorting to oaks because it's pretty much my favorite tree in game, and as you can see, I'm spamming it now. It's a compulsion. I can't control myself. But I kind of want to keep the oaks out of this area, and just so that it looks a little more unique from afar. And I think that covers the trees, so it's time to spam decals, of course. And let's see, I'll have some stain decals, just a few here along the tram tracks, and then this general area here. Man, this is some advanced detailing. Are you guys following this? Crazy stuff indeed. We'll need some lights as well to illuminate the station and the surrounding area as well, of course. Just gonna add these in manually. And then for good measure, I'm adding in a few random looking electrical installations. Don't know how realistic that would be, but it's just to get in that extra bit of detailing alongside the tram station here. So it's always fun to just add in a little extra there. And then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna grab some surfaces again, and we'll grab the thick riverbed to really showcase that. At times there's actually a little path here for technicians to come and service this if need be. And then I'm thinking that since it's an attempt at a realistic American city, then having a few like petrol pumps here is probably a really good idea, because I'm thinking that soccer moms in big SUVs, they're gonna use this as a road. You know, they don't respect the idea of you know, other means of transportation having dedicated roads. So I'm thinking if we just place a I'm not even funny, but yeah, I guess I think I'm a little funny. Anyways, I'm trying to look for like some sort of a ticket booth, and I really can't find. And if maybe something here. No, nothing. I guess. Look at some of this. Maybe this is really old. It looks like a parking meter. Oh boy. I'm gonna place that in desperation, because I haven't been able to find anything else, but I guess it's better than a gas pump, right? And for the final thing, I'm just gonna adjust the surfaces so that they actually cover a bit more of the tracks here where people stand, and maybe even expand them to also cover these pedestrian paths that people clearly want to use more than my custom paths. And I think that covers the amount of detailing we'll be doing here. A bit of an odd stop, but yeah, just wanted to let my imagination run free, and I'm pretty happy with the final result. So let's move on to some other projects. And for the next small project, I just want to do a bit of detailing around this major stop here alongside Bohemia Street. And we're gonna sort of use some of the same aesthetics with the custom stop we just created. So we'll jump into tiles, grab the very same type of tiling here, and then we are gonna try and just cover the pavement here that is dedicated to the stop basically. So we'll see how this works out. And with this being a new tram line, you know, I imagine all this was created recently, so I think it would make sense that when they added this extra stretch of pedestrianized area, pedestrian path basically, they also used the very same tile that was used at the custom station. So something like this, and then we can of course easily grab the type of props that we've used down here as well and just add a few of those. And this time we are gonna use the line tool, so let's just rotate this to what's it gonna be, 270 I assume, yeah, and then we'll bring them close together, something like this. And then I'm just gonna find the edge of the surface here and create a few of these, because then I kind of know what to utilize when I move to the other side as well. So hopefully it's relatively well aligned. And it seems the stop here is a little more busy than in the other direction, but I guess that makes sense, seeing as this is heading towards downtown, as well as of course going through all the jobs in Oldport and the yard first. So just a simple setup like this. And then maybe the council was smart enough to use this opportunity to just add a few planters as well, to get some trees in place. And we'll just go for one major tree on either side. And hopefully there's gonna be no clipping or sea fighting between the surface and this decal. I don't think so. I think decals are always gonna be placed on top. Yoink, and the final touch. Some of you might have guessed it. We're gonna add stains. This is a brand new area and it's already stained up. But I mean, it's busy, right? So we're bound to see some staining and some detailing. And to round it out, I've just added a tiny bit of detailing to the small stop here on Woodland Street, just for good measure. And some pretty good views from here and downtown, and a lot of elevation here actually, which I barely notice when I'm actually building. It's only when you zoom in you start to notice it. But this is I think this is a pretty successful addition to this tram line. And now we're gonna do something completely different, as another issue besides public transportation and a host of other issues in Riverview is the current education situation. So I've got elementary school covered, and that's about it. I mean, we still don't have a university, so we're really gonna need that sometime in the future, but we are also way under capacity for our high school and college level systems. So I think, you know, it's better to just get started with this project and start implementing that in, you know, over the course of many episodes. So we're gonna start with some high schooling today, and I think Northside is a pretty good spot for a high school. It's, you know, it's a pretty dense area now, at least, and the existing high school, the Riverview High School, is in the southern part of the you know, inner city area. So I think up here is pretty good. We've got a spot here which I think would be pretty suitable. It's right next to the Bohemia Street stop and pretty centrally located, so I am just gonna get rid of the fancy wealthy houses here. And then you might wonder, well, this lot probably wouldn't fit a high school, but I've once again went over to the workshop and grabbed some custom stuff. And among them, there's this high school here, which uses a library model, and it's got a much smaller footprint, as you can see, so you can easily kind of squeeze this in to an existing area. Just gonna disable Anarchy so it removes the trees, and let's see if that is pretty well aligned. Just gonna place it here. So it's not a custom asset in the sense that we can't get custom buildings into the game yet, but there are many clever things that the modding community is doing right now, and one of them is definitely this, expanding on our education options. Anyways, a high school like this is, I'm not gonna add like sport fields and stuff, at least not now, because I kinda, the whole idea is that it has a small footprint, but it is going to need some surface parking. I mean, obviously it's gonna need some surface parking. It's an American high school, right? So I'm just gonna make some room for that over here. Remove all the zoning here, then move in and get rid of all the trees as well. Let's see. Something like this. And then to keep it a little simple here, as opposed to really creating a fully custom parking lot, I'm going to use the parking lot roads, the invisible ones. But we can still create, you know, a design that's a little more interesting than just having a completely plain cookie cutter design. So I'm going to try and do just that. So I'm going to create a shape like this. And then I think we're gonna branch out somewhere here and then create an additional segment. And let's see if we can do this without causing a host of issues. Maybe I should just do this connection actually. Yeah, something like that. And then, yeah, one of the features I've already praised a ton is the ability for us to show markers when we start adding the surfaces. So we'll go for the regular pavement surface here, and we can say show markers, and we get the markers or the complete outline of the invisible road. And not just that, if we enable snapping, it's even gonna snap to it. So that just makes this slightly tedious surface painting task a little more manageable. And I'm gonna adhere to the snapping wherever it allows me to, and then if there are issues like here, I'm just gonna manually adjust that with snapping off in just a second. Yeah, that is certainly an interesting layout. We're gonna add some pedestrian paths to easily connect to the actual school. Just gonna disable Anarchy here, and well, actually, yeah, I'm just gonna disable Anarchy and make a crossing here so that it connects up. And maybe we'll add one here as well. And hopefully without messing too much with anything. Something like this, and maybe just connecting these two segments up. And then you guessed it, we're gonna grab some surfaces again. This time we're gonna do it a little differently though, because I want to also fill in the area in here with a surface, because obviously it's looking a little weird. So I think we can just use the type of surface we've already used a bit, and then I'm just gonna enable Anarchy and follow the snapping guidelines as much as possible so that this becomes a tiled surface in here. instead of just being pavement. And this is really like one step that's going to make this parking lot a lot more interesting. And I hope you guys agree. When I added this, it really does change the whole feel of the parking lot. We're gonna use the same surface type then for the pedestrian paths. But over here at the high school, we're probably... Oh, I gotta be careful now, I'm gonna mess something up. We are probably just going to expand the existing surface here. And we've already got a completely non-shady black van with toned windows parking near the high school. And I'll just jump into adding a bit of detail. And this guy drives away right as I pointed out. Suspicious types. And then we're gonna wrap up with these super cool net lanes here we can add as well, which adds this sort of wear and tear on the parking lot roads here. Just gonna add these randomly. Cool. We'll rename this Northside Musical High School for hipsters. And I think that concludes today's episode, so I want to thank you guys so much for watching, all the feedback and support. I'm gonna get busy shooting some cinematics now to round out the episode, and as always, I hope to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.